State.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Haskell, do you know a Rhonda Jewell?
Yes, sir.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, if you could.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Can you please point to her and identify to the court what she's wearing?
A black blazer and a white top.
All right, Your Honor, for the record, she's identified the defendant.
The record will reflect that, yes.
On July 19th of 2023, was the defendant taking care of your children?
Yes, sir.
And how many kids do you have?
3.
And what are their ages?
At the time, they were 9, 3, and 3.
And the 2 3-year-olds, are they twins?
Yes.
2 boys and a girl?
2 boys and my daughter. Yeah.
And your daughter. Okay, that's what I thought. What were the hours that she would be watching your kids?
Usually between 8 and 8:30 until between 5 and 5:30.
Okay. Let me take you to July 19th of 2023. On that day, did the defendant come to your house to watch your kids?
Yes, sir.
What time do you remember her arriving, approximately?
Between 8:15 and 8:30.
When she came into your house, do you remember what she had in her hand, what she brought with her?
She had her pink large cup, a can of chicken, and a bag of chips.
Did she have anything else with her?
Her cell phone.
Her cell phone, okay.
Yes, sir.
Anything other than that?
No.
Did she enter through the front door or back door? How does she normally get in?
The side door, which is what we consider our garage door.
Okay. And do you remember where her car was parked that day?
It was parked in the rocks to the side of the driveway.
So it was outside?
Yes, sir.
Is that where she normally parked?
Yes.
Was your husband home at that time?
No, he had already gone to work.
When do you normally go to work?
Usually between that 8 and 8:30 time frame.
Do you remember when she came into your house, did she say anything to you before you left for work?
We had a typical conversation like we do every time. I call it like a handoff to anybody that keeps my kids. So we just exchanged a few words regarding the kids.
And do you remember her saying anything to you?
She had said that her shoulder hurt, that she had hurt her shoulder a few days ago. And then we just spoke about the kids. I let her know that they were all still in bed.
So your kids were asleep when she arrived?
Yes, my daughter may have been awake at the time, but she was in her bedroom on her iPad.
When she came into your house, did you see her with an infant named
sir.
Araya?
No, sir.
Have you ever seen Araya before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tell me how you know about Araya.
I knew that she was Rhonda had asked if she could keep her best friend's baby or best friend's grandbaby on occasion when she had my kids. So I had seen Araya a couple of times.
So she would bring Araya to your house on certain occasions?
Yes, sir.
On that day, did you see Araya at all?
No.
Did she bring Araya ever into the house?
No, sir.
Did she ever bring a baby bag into the
No,
house?
sir.
A baby blanket?
No, sir.
Did she mention anything to you about Araya that day before you went to work?
No, sir.
Do you remember what time she came to your house? I may have already asked.
It was between 8:15 and 8:30. I do not recall the exact time.
And you left around what time did you say?
Between that time frame.
Okay. After you left the house, you go to work.
Yes, sir.
Do you then hear from the defendant at what time?
Before 9 a.m., she sent me a picture of my son's back that I had requested
How did you get this picture?
via text message.
So you text back and forth with the defendant.
Yes, sir.
That day of July 19th, do you recall how many times you texted with her?
If I recall correctly, it was just that time, and then I didn't speak to her again until she called.
Did anyone else call you that morning before you heard from the defendant?
Yes, my daughter called me from her cell phone.
Okay. What did you tell your daughter? And how old is your daughter?
She was 9 at the time.
Okay.
And she had called to ask a silly question. I don't recall exactly what it was, but I could hear her brothers in the background. So I asked her if her brothers were behaving. They usually were little balls of energy.
Yes.
And I could hear Rhonda's voice in the background. That was it. It was a very short conversation.
And did you tell your daughter to do anything?
I had asked her to make sure she brought her puppy inside
Where was the puppy?
in the backyard.
Okay, so outside.
Yes, sir.
Why did you ask her to bring the puppy inside?
We always brought it in for a nap or just to be in the air condition. It was very small, had been dehydrated a couple of times.
So were you concerned about the puppy being outside in the
Yes,
heat?
yes,
And is it your understanding she did bring the puppy in?
yes.
Do you eventually get a phone call from the defendant?
Yes.
Okay, and do you remember approximately what time it was?
In the 12 o'clock hour, I don't remember the exact time.
Okay, no, that's
Sorry.
okay. You were at work when you get this phone call?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what did the defendant say to you when she called you?
She said that I needed to come home right now. She was screaming and crying on the phone. She said that she left the baby in the car and that I needed to come home right now.
When she said she left the baby in the car and you need to come home, were you thinking that maybe it was possibly your kids?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ask her about your kids?
Yes, I
What did you ask her?
I said, oh, I need to know what happened. Are my kids okay? And she said, your kids are fine.
Okay. So you were concerned for your kids' safety, obviously.
Yes, sir.
When she said, I left the baby in the car, what did you think when she said that?
I assumed that she meant Araya.
Okay. Because you had seen Araya come to your house before.
Yes, sir.
So you get this call from her saying, I left the baby in the car. What did you do?
I dropped everything I was doing and grabbed my stuff and ran to the front of my office to get someone to bring me home.
Did you drive home?
No, I could not. My vehicle was being detailed at the time, and so I just looked at the first person in the front of the office and asked her to please drive me.
How long does it take you to get to the house?
A couple of minutes. I only live about a mile and a half-ish down the road.
And you live on Estate Street, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's here in Baker County?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you first get there, what do you see?
There were a lot of police officers and ambulances and fire trucks.
Do you see your 3 kids?
When I pulled in, no, I did not.
When did you first see your kids?
When I got to the porch, I saw 3 sets of eyes looking out the window at me.
What did you do when you saw your kids?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I tried to speak to Rhonda first, and then I dropped all my things on the porch and went inside to check on my children.
When you spoke to Rhonda, what did she tell you?
She was frantic. It was very difficult to understand her, but she just kept saying that she forgot the baby in the car.
So she admitted that to you.
Yes, she was crying very hard, gasping for air.
And then you said your kids, were they inside when you got home or outside?
They were inside the house, but I could see the blinds peeked open, and all 3 of them were up against the window looking outside.
Did you then go inside the house
Yes, sir.
to take care of your kids?
Yes, sir.
Did you speak to Rhonda again later that day or during this?
I did. I calmed my children down, and I went outside to wave for the girl that drove me home. She waited by the ditch. I asked for her to come sit inside with my children, and so I could go check on Rhonda. And when she came in to sit with my children, I stepped outside just to ask. I wanted to know what happened. I guess at the time it wasn't dawning on me exactly what had happened.
What'd she tell you?
She just kept repeating the same things over again, that she forgot the baby, and she was crying and she was throwing up.
Once again, she admitted she forgot the baby in the car.
Yes, sir.
When you got there, did you ever see Araya?
Oh, I did not.
She had already been transported?
She was, I guess, in the ambulance. I never saw her. I never saw her.
Ms. Pascal, thank you. I think that's all I have.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I tender the witness.
Cross-examination?
You need a minute, Ms. Pascal, or are you okay?
Keep going.
If I ask you a question you don't understand, please ask me to repeat it, okay?
Yes, sir.
The state asked you how you knew Rhonda. Did you know her? How did you know her?
She was a mutual friend. I had never met her before she kept my children, but when I asked about her in the community, we asked very in depth. My boyfriend knew of her, knew very well of her, had been around her. My best friend recommended her. So we received a lot of great reviews, I guess you could say, that she was amazing with children.
So, fair to say you knew her but never met her.
I had never met her before she kept my children, yes, sir.
And so I understand further that maybe your prior babysitter had an issue and had to quit. Was that my understanding?
Yes, without warning.
And that was kind of sudden, if I recall correctly?
Yes, sir.
So you needed someone quickly.
Yes, sir.
But you just didn't hire on the spot, right?
No. I'm a helicopter mom, so I asked around. I worked at an office local full of women that have grown up in Baker County. I'm not from Baker County. And every single one of them said if you could pick one person in Baker County to keep your children, it would be her. So she came highly recommended.
Did you meet with her before hiring her?
I did. We did like a phone call. I called it like a phone interview, really. We talked for a long time. She asked questions. I asked questions. And then she came to the house and sat down, and then we met. Me and my boyfriend met with her again to talk, and she met the kids.
When did she actually start sitting with your children?
I want to say the end of March. I don't know a specific date.
In March, 1st of April, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But just to go back to make sure I'm clear, you have 2 3-year-old twin boys.
Yes, sir.
I guess they're older than that now. At the time they were.
Yes.
And you have a 9-year-old daughter.
Yes.
Am I correct in saying that the home on the State Street is where you, your husband live, and all 3 of those kids live, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it also fair to say that on some occasions when Rhonda would watch the kids, your daughter wouldn't be there?
Yes, on occasion.
Okay. Would it also be fair to say that when you first hired Rhonda to watch your children, that she watched them more than she was by the time the summer rolled around, correct?
Yes, correct.
How often was she watching them early on?
Early on, it started 3-4 days a week. And then as summer approached, I had a little bit more assistance with by the kids' grandmas. And so it bumped down to like 2 to 3 days a week.
And as I understand it, you, as you said, just work right down the road, correct?
Yes, sir.
You work at a health agency?
Yes.
Okay, you're a nurse.
Yes.
So again, early on, it was 3 or 4 days a week consistently, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then toward the summer, it became 2 to 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
Was that oftentimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays?
Every week was different. So we kind of either on the Friday before or over the weekend, we would discuss, hey, what you got this week? What days are you available? When, and we just went like that, whatever worked for each other.
Is it accurate to say that on this particular week, she was going to watch the boys and your daughter on Wednesday and Thursday?
Yes, sir.
So she didn't watch them on Monday and Tuesday?
No, sir.
Or on Friday, obviously?
No.
Prior to July 19th, approximately how many times would you say she watched your boys or your daughter just as a group? Let me ask you this better.
Okay.
If I said 4 days a week from March or April through early June and then 2 or 3 days a week after that, that'd be pretty accurate?
Yes, that's accurate.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Any ever any problems with Mrs. Jewell?
No. She was wonderful for us.
Did your children have a nickname for her?
They called her Raw Raw.
And I think you told us already that she would watch either both the boys or the boys and your daughter from about sometime between 8 and 8:30 until about 5 to 5:30, correct?
Yes, sir.
Feed them,
Yep.
give them all those things that provide care.
Yes.
Ever any problems with that?
No. She got my boys to try new things, which was very difficult. She interacted with them very well. She actually played with them and taught them things.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper character evidence.
Sustained.
Do you have any safety concerns for your children at all?
No, sir. Never.
Mr. Yazdi, I asked you about a text. Now, on the morning of the 19th, what did you ask Rhonda to do once you had left?
I had told her my son, Jackson, one of the twins, had fallen, gotten hurt the night before. I had asked her if she'd send me a picture of his back when he woke up. I was afraid that he was going to have a really bad bruise from his fall.
And did she do that?
Yes, sir.
And that injury had nothing to do with Mrs. Jewell?
Oh, no, she wasn't even there. It happened at our house. He was being a typical boy.
Thank you. And other than the phone call your daughter made, where you could hear the boys in the background as well as Rhonda talking, you had no further communication, correct?
No, sir.
When you first hired Mrs. Jewell, you had a lot more text with her, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you remember approximately when Araya started coming over to your home?
I feel like it was in May.
You're not 100% sure?
No, I'm not sure of a date.
It certainly would have been by June, is that fair
Yes,
enough to say?
yes.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that Araya was never there when you got home?
No, she was always gone. She left at like lunchtime, I think.
You're not sure because you weren't there?
Yeah, I wasn't there, but
The routine that Rhonda would normally follow, would be she would come through the side door next to the actual garage doors, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was open generally, I'm assuming?
yes,
And inside the garage, there was, I know at least a golf car, but other items as well, correct?
yes,
I think you'd indicated in prior testimony that some of your husband's parents' furniture was in there, so no cars would go in there.
oh
correct?
no, slam packed.
Okay. And through that garage, there's a second door into the actual house.
Yes, sir.
Where does that door come out in your home?
It comes out into the living room. It's all an open floor plan, so you would walk to the left as your living room, to the right would be a hallway down to my bedroom, and then forward would be the kitchen,
If you were to walk in the front door of your home, what would be the first thing you'd walk into?
the living room.
And what's behind the living room toward the back of the house?
There would be the kitchen and dining room, and then beyond those walls is a playroom.
And so if you walked in, you would see all that, basically all but the playroom, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You'd see the dining room, living room, and then the kitchen.
Yes, there's no walls, it's open.
Thank you. And then there's a separate room, sounds like, where there's a door into what you call a playroom.
Yes, yes,
And is that off to the right if you walk to the kitchen area?
to the left. So between the kitchen and dining room, it's all open, but then there's a doorway that goes into a playroom.
And you had told Rhonda that just to knock and come on in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That was her routine.
That's what I do. Family and friends just knock and come in. If some mornings I would be getting dressed, or something. She knew that she could come in. She didn't have to stand at the door.
Would it be fair to say that on the 19th, you had asked Rhonda to come a little bit early because you wanted to get to work, because you had a meeting at work, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
And that when she did arrive, you were in a hurry to leave.
Yes, I had my stuff gathered to leave.
You had this very brief conversation with Rhonda, and then you went out the front door, I'm assuming?
The garage door.
Garage door.
Yes, sir.
Got into your vehicle and back down the driveway.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Asdi asked you about a phone call that you got from Rhonda Jewell. You're not sure what time it was.
I don't remember a specific time. No, sir.
I told you it was around 1:15. Would that sound about right to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you also agree it was a very short call?
Very short. Yes.
And in this call, were you expecting to get a call from her at that point?
No, it was rare for her to call me during the day. Usually it was either a text message or a Snapchat. So I knew to answer immediately.
And when you answered the phone, I guess you knew it was her calling from the
Yes.
phone, I'm assuming. What did Rhonda Jewell sound like to you at that point?
She was distraught. It was very hard to understand her. I think I had to say, Rhonda, I had to try to get through to her. I need to know what's wrong. She was screaming. She was crying.
Mr. Yesty asked you about what Rhonda Jewell said in the phone call. I think I wrote it down correctly. She told you you need to come home right now,
Yes, sir.
that your kids were fine,
Yes, sir.
and she left the baby in the car is how you phrased it.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Did she also say this? I left the baby in the car. How could I be so stupid? How could this happen?
Yes, sir.
As I understood your testimony, you obviously rushed home, and a friend drove you.
Yes, sir.
And again, you're a few minutes away, obviously.
Yes, sir.
You described the scene when you first arrived, and you described going up to the house and seeing your kid's eyes
Yes,
looking
sir.
out the window. Where's Miss Jewell, Rhonda Jewell at that point? Do you remember?
She was on the front porch. She was by herself, from what I remember. She was on the front porch and she was crying.
Did you talk to her at all at that point?
I did. I just said, Rhonda, what's wrong? What happened?
And what did she say?
She said, I forgot the baby in the car.
So you go and check on your kids, obviously.
Yes.
That's your primary. focus at
Absolutely.
this point.
Absolutely.
And they were fine, obviously.
Just concerned.
Sure. So how long before you come back out would you estimate it? A minute or two?
Yeah, just a minute or so. I told them told Big Sister to get the boys away from the window. And I told him, just hang on a second. Let me get the girl that drove me home. Let me get her to come sit inside with them.
Right, the lady that drove you from your work
Yes.
went inside with them. Okay. You went out to speak to Rhonda. That's because you wanted to know, you weren't sure what had happened at this point, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is she out there by herself still? Do you remember?
Yes.
What was she doing at that moment?
Crying. She was throwing up and then dry heaving.
Was she saying anything at that point when you went out on the porch to speak to her?
She just kept repeating the same things over and over again, that she forgot the baby, and she asked me to call Mr. Robbie.
So she repeated, I forgot the baby, I forgot the baby, I forgot the baby.
Yes, sir.
Would you describe her as extremely distraught?
Yes, sir.
Did you think she was in a panic mode at that point?
Absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor, speculative.
Sustained.
Ms. Pascal, did you notice that whether Rhonda Jewell had urinated on herself at this point?
Yes, sir.
You could see that very clearly.
Yes, sir.
At some point, did you, at law enforcement's request, get her a change of,
Yes, sir. I went in my house and tried to find her a pair of shorts.
just a pair of shorts?
Yeah.
Just a moment. A couple last things, Ms. Pascal. Just to be clear, you had seen Orion before, correct?
Yes.
She had brought her into your home when she arrived, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
You mentioned early on that you two texted a lot more early on. Would it be fair to say that these were quick texts, right?
Yeah. I usually would just check in every hour, every couple of hours, things of that nature.
From everything you know, she spent quality time with your boys and your daughter.
Yes.
When
My
she was
children
there.
love her. Yes.
When she was there, she was engaged with them directly, correct?
Yes. Directly.
And you've witnessed this, correct?
Yes, absolutely. She would walk right in the door if they were awake, get right on the floor and start playing trucks or trains or whatever they were playing with.
I have another question, John.
Any redirect of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, can she be excused, subject to recall?
Subject to recall, Judge.
Okay, fine. If you'll step down, please, ma'am. Would the state call its next witness?
Pamela LePage.
Raise your, up. Stand up, please, ma'am. The clerk wants to swear you in. Would you raise your right hand to be sworn, please?
You solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony that you will give will be the truth and
Now have a seat. And I'll ask you to sit up close to that microphone so that you can hear yourself over the PA system when you come in. Counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Page, what is your profession?
I'm a registered nurse, and I'm a registered nurse
Registered nurse. How long have you been a nurse?
for 31, almost 32 years.
So your son would be Justice Page,
Yes,
and your daughter-in-law would be Brooke.
yes,
So obviously your granddaughter was Araya.
yes,
Was Araya your first granddaughter?
yes,
Do you know a Rhonda Jewell?
yes, I know of her.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes, I see her.
Could you please just point to her and identify what she's wearing?
She looks to be wearing a black jacket and a pinstripe shirt.
Your Honor, she's identified the defendant for the record.
The record will so reflect.
Ms. Page, let me take you to July 19th of 2023. Can you tell the jury, how did you find out about this incident? Where were you?
I was actually at Walmart, and I got a call on my cell phone from Brooke.
And when you say Walmart, you mean the one here on 5th Street, I think it is? In
6th
McLean?
Street.
6th
Yeah,
Street.
5th Street. 5th Street, 228 in McLean.
Okay. Can you describe when you received this phone call from Brooke, your daughter-in-law, how did she sound on the phone?
She sounded frantic, terrified.
Do you remember what she said?
I do. She said, "Get to me, and get to me right now. Araya's lips are blue."
When you heard that Araya's lips are blue, what did you do?
I just started running towards my car, and I told her to give her CPR.
So what was going through your mind when you heard Araya's lips are blue?
I didn't know why her lips were blue. I just knew she needed to give her CPR to try to resuscitate her. So I just started coaching her as I was running to my car with CPR.
Being that you've been a nurse now, you said for about 31 years, I would imagine as a nurse that you're well trained on how to perform CPR.
Yes.
Did you start giving those instructions to Brooke Page?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And this is while you're running out of Walmart trying to get to your car?
Yes, to get to her and Araya.
And very briefly, can you just describe to the jury what is CPR?
CPR is giving a person breath to breathe for them. And that's all I wanted her to do, was give her breaths.
Okay. Do you get to your car in the parking lot?
I get to my car in the parking lot, and I'm driving and still coaching her through CPR. I'm praying, and I'm just driving. And I drove to her house. I got to her house, and I said, "You're not home. Where are you?" And she said, "I'm in McClenny 2."
What is McClenny 2?
McClenny 2 is a neighborhood in South McClenny, down South 121.
So would it be fair, Ms. Page, to say that you went straight to your son and daughter-in-law's house and realized they weren't there?
Yes,
And then when you talk to Brooke, she says, "I'm in McClenny 2."
yes.
Do you then go there?
And I drove there, still talking to her on the phone, just trying to get an understanding of what happened, and just driving and trying to talk to her, because she kept saying, please don't die, Araya, please don't die." And I told her, "Don't think that way. We just have to pray." I said, just hold on to your faith. We just have to pray. Don't think like that." And when I got to the entrance of McClenny 2, I saw the ambulance. I saw the ambulance and a police car, and I pulled to the side of the road, and then I got behind the ambulance and started driving, because I knew that had to be them.
Did you see Araya at that point?
No, I couldn't see Araya at that point.
And was the ambulance still at the house, or was it leaving?
It was leaving. The ambulance was on Highway 121 going north.
Going towards Ed Frazier?
Yes.
And did you follow the ambulance?
Yes, I did.
And did you get to Ed Frazier
Yes.
about the same time the ambulance did?
Yes.
And what did you see when you got there?
I saw the rescue workers taking Araya out of the ambulance, and they were still doing CPR. And I could see Araya. She just looked lifeless. And one of the paramedics was crying, so I kind of knew that was a bad sign.
Were you, when you first got there, Ms. Page, were you or any of the family members allowed to go inside the ER at first?
No.
Were you present when the doctor came out and pronounced that she was deceased?
Yes.
What did you do after that?
I just remember hearing screaming, and I don't really even know if it came from me or if it came from Brooke. And then we were taken to the chapel.
Your Honor, I don't think I have any more questions. Ms. Page, thank you. I turn to the witness.
Mrs. Page, we're sorry for your loss. Just got a couple of quick questions for you. At the time, in the July of 2023, were you keeping Araya at any point during the week?
I kept her on Tuesdays and Thursdays sometimes.
Okay. So that was on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Were you scheduled to keep
Yes.
her the following day on Thursday?
I don't know. Sometimes, usually it was just Tuesdays. Sometimes it was Thursdays. It just depended on whether Brooke was off or whether she had a doctor's appointment, because sometimes she would keep her at home. But I can't recall if I was scheduled to keep her the next day.
Ms. Page, you didn't really know Rhonda Jewell at all, correct?
I knew of her.
Knew of her, that's what I said. You never spoken to her before, right?
I may have in passing at family events.
Was she at a lot of family events?
She was at the ones I was at on Brooke's side of the family.
So when Brooke had a family event, Rhonda Jewell was often there?
At the ones that I was at.
Yes, ma'am, I understand that. Yes. Ms. Jewell was at the housewarming when you were there as well?
I'm sorry?
Was Ms. Jewell at the housewarming when you were there?
Objection, relevance.
I'm just trying to determine what kind of context you have with Rhonda Jewell, Judge.
I'll sustain that. I think she's made the point that it's sustained.
Just a moment. Thank you, Mr. Page. I have no other questions on it.
Any redirect of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Can she be excused?
Subject to recall, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Page, you are excused, subject to recall. If they need you, they'll call you back. And at this time, if you'll step down, please, ma'am. Would the state call its next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. Next is going to be Deputy Robert Wilson.
Deputy Wilson, would you face the clerk and raise your right hand, please, sir?
You solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you will give will be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God.
I do. Have a seat, please, sir. Adjust the microphone, if you will, so you can speak into it.
May it please the court?
You may proceed.
Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Corporal Robert Wilson with the Baker County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Baker County Sheriff's Office?
A little over 2 years.
And you said your current position is a corporal?
Yes.
Please describe for the jury your duties and responsibilities as a corporal.
I am on the patrol side of the Sheriff's Office. I'm a supervisor for Bravo shift. I patrol and maintain or respond to calls throughout the county of Baker.
I'm going to take you back to July 19th of 2023. Were you employed by the Sheriff's Office at that time?
I was.
And what was your position back on July 19th?
I was just deputy on zone patrol.
And were you on duty July 19th of 2023?
I was.
And were you in uniform?
I was.
As part of your uniform, do you wear a body camera?
I do.
Can you please describe for the jury what a body camera is?
Body camera is provided by the agency as a Axon brand. It sets a center mount on my chest. Anytime we engage in a law enforcement capacity, we activate it and it records sound and audio of what I'm witnessing.
I know it's been a little while, but do you recall what hours or what shift you were working back on July 19th?
I was day shift. I worked from 6A to 6P.
And do you remember the weather that day?
It was a July normal sunny day.
Now, while you were on duty on July 19th, did you receive a call to go to 4596 Estate Street here in McClenny, Florida?
I did.
And what was the nature of that call?
From what I recall, it was a child not breathing call.
And if you recall, approximately how long did it take you to get there?
I don't recall exact, but within 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, I was on scene.
And when you got on scene, can you please tell the jury what you observed? What was going on?
As soon as I arrived on scene, I walked. There was people running around frantic. I walked straight into the garage where the EMS crews had just went in. I was right behind them. When I got inside the garage, I found the Aria on the golf cart and commenced assisted in CPR.
Who all was in the garage with you?
At that time, it was me and the 2 EMS personnel, and then I believe family was going in and out. I was focused on the child at the time.
Were you assisting EMS with caring for Araya?
Yes.
Now, at some point while you were in the hospital, or while you were at that location, did you was a decision made to leave the garage?
Yes, after a few minutes of CPR.
And where did you go next?
We went straight to the rescue unit.
And when you departed that location, where did you go?
Once it was determined we were going to the hospital, we went to Ed Frazier's, and I provided an escort through the county.
When you say you provided escort, can you please describe for the jury what that means?
Sure. I coordinated with the additional units who were on scene, and we ran lights and sirens with the ambulance and blocked the intersections to provide a smooth and quick response to the hospital.
While this was going on July 19th, were you wearing a body camera?
I was.
And was it activated?
It was.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
And where do you work?
The Baker County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been with the Baker County Sheriff's Office?
25 years.
What is your current position?
I'm a detective.
How long have you held that position?
3 years.
Have you had other positions here at the Sheriff's Office?
I have a dispatcher, emergency management director, evidence custodian, and the crime scene technician.
And back in July of 2023, what position were you holding?
A detective and crime scene and evidence technician.
On July 19th of 2023, did you respond to 4596 Estate Street here in McClenny, Florida?
I did.
Why did you do that?
I was directed there for a child death.
And can you please tell the jury what you did when you responded to that location?
When I got there, I photographed the scene and collected evidence from the scene.
Can you please tell the jury, have you had training in photographing crime scenes as part of being a crime scene technician?
I have.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'm handing you what's been released from the state's deposits of J1 through 5. Can you please take a look at those and see if you recognize what they are?
Yes, sir.
What are they?
They're photographs of the defendant's vehicle.
Did you take those photographs?
I did.
They fairly and accurately represent what you call July 19th, 2012.
They do.
Have they been altered or tampered in any way?
No, sir.
Your Honor, state would like to move it in states J1 through 5 as evidence.
Any objection?
No objection.
They will be received then as 9A through E.
Permission, public, Your Honor?
Granted.
Executive Cohen, if I can have you focus on the screen behind you here in just a moment. I believe this would be states J1. Could you please describe to the jury what we're looking at here?
The defendant's vehicle.
And to your knowledge, had it been moved at all?
No, sir.
And you took this photograph?
Yes, sir.
This is at the location that you responded to?
Yes, sir.
Go to the next, this would be states J2. What do we see in this photograph?
The defendant's vehicle, the door is open on the driver's side.
And can you please tell the jury what is inside the vehicle?
It's an infant carrier.
J3, the next photograph. Again, Detective Cohn, what do we see here?
Infant carrier, a diaper bag, and a pink blanket.
J4, what is this photograph now?
Infant carrier, pink blanket, diaper bag.
And is this photographing the vehicle as law enforcement found it that day?
Yes, sir.
And J5, again, ma'am, if you could tell us what's in this photograph.
The infant carrier.
And Detective, did you also go into the residence at that location?
I did.
And did you take photographs inside there as well?
I did.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Detective Cohn, handing you what's been marked as State's Composite Exhibit I-1 and 2. Will you again take a look at those and let us know if you recognize what they are?
I do.
What are they?
Photographs from the inside of the residence.
Fairly accurately depict what you recall on July 19, 2023?
Yes, sir.
They've been altered, tampered, or anything?
No, sir.
Your Honor, State movement, State's Composite Exhibit I-1 and 2, as I believe it would be States 9A and B, 10A.
Any objection?
No objection.
They will be received in State's Composite Exhibit 10, A and B.
Permission to talk, Your Honor?
Brandon?
Detective Cohn, here in just a moment, again on the screen behind you. I believe this would be States 10A. Can you please inform the jury what we're looking at in this photograph?
This is the kitchen of the residence.
And this was on July 19th when you responded to the scene?
Yes, sir.
This would be States 10B. Please let us know what's in this photograph as well, ma'am.
This is a back porch area, and there was a kennel with a dog.
Detective Cohn, while you were on scene on July 19th at that residence, did you do any other investigating or collection of evidence?
I collected the items out of the vehicle, but nothing from within the residence.
And was there any testing performed on the vehicle or anything else that you were involved with?
The only testing was with a heat gun to determine the interior temperature of the vehicle.
And did you perform that testing, or were you with other emergency services or law enforcement?
I was with Fire Chief Blanton.
And was Chief Blanton the person who performed that analysis?
Correct.
Okay, one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
No other questions, Your Honor. Tend to the witness.
Cross-examination?
Good afternoon, Officer Cohn. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry. What time did you arrive at the Estates Drive?
I don't know the exact time. It was in the report.
You give me an estimate?
It was afternoon, I believe.
Okay, can you give me just a moment?
Mhm.
Did you make a report yourself, Officer Cohn?
I did a supplement to the report.
Just can I approach the witness? May I approach the witness?
You may.
Officer Cohn, I'm going to show you what's called an incident report. Can you tell the jury what that is?
Incident report, like a CAD report. An incident report. Okay, that's an offense report, a report of the offense?
It says incident.
Correct.
So what is that?
It's the police report, an accounting of the event.
Would your supplement be in here?
Yes, it should be.
Look for it if you give me the time that you arrive.
It is not in my supplement at the time that I arrived. It would be on the CAD report.
Officer, when you arrived, was medical personnel still on scene or not?
No, sir.
Okay. Were other deputies still on scene, do you recall?
Detective Curry,
Detective Curry? Was he in a marked patrol vehicle or unmarked? Do you recall?
unmarked.
Was he the only other officer there at the time?
Yes, sir.
There were no other rescue units of fire rescue of any kind?
Not that I recall.
How long do you think you stayed on scene at the Estates Drive address?
At least an hour.
Was your purpose there to take photographs and collect evidence?
Correct.
The photographs that were shown to you by the state, marked as photographs 9A through E, and I believe 10A and B. You took more photographs than that, correct?
I did.
As it relates to pictures 9A through E of the vehicle, do you know whether the items in the vehicle have been moved at all?
Not to my knowledge, they had not been moved.
But you're not sure.
No, sir.
You weren't there when EMS arrived, you weren't there when law enforcement arrived?
No, sir. I photographed it as I saw it when I arrived.
Whatever time that may have been.
Yes, sir.
Same true for the photographs inside the home. You took more than those two photographs.
Yes, sir.
And you don't know what had been moved after EMS had arrived or law enforcement had arrived, correct?
Right.
Referring to photographs 10A and B, one is of the kitchen and one is of what you call a back porch. Could that also be a playroom?
It could be.
Okay. Is it fair to say that if you were looking at the photograph of the kitchen, that playroom was off to the left rear?
Yes, sir.
Does that sound accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is it fair to say that when you did arrive, Rhonda Jewell was still at the home, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that she was very upset and crying?
Yes, sir.
Would it be fair to say that she had urinated on herself?
Yes, sir.
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Any redirect of this witness? You're welcome.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Very brief. Detective Coe, when you photograph a scene, is it your habit and practice to take several photographs of the same objects or location?
Yes, it is.
Would those photographs be duplicative if all were shown?
I'm sorry?
Would showing all those photographs be duplicative? Would you see the same thing over?
Yes, sir.
No other questions.
Any other questions of this witness?
Just one last one, Judge. You took other photographs, so they weren't all duplicates, were they?
No, sir.
No other questions.
Okay. Can she be excused, again, subject to recall?
Yes, sir.
You are excused, subject to recall.
Thank you.
Would State call its next witness, please?
Next, Your Honor, will be Paul Dickinson. Thank you. Mr. Dickinson, where do you currently work?
I work for Baker County Fire Rescue.
How long have you worked with the Baker County Fire Rescue?
Close to 15 years.
Where did you work before that?
I've worked for a couple other agencies in private ambulance services. I worked for Suwannee County, Century Ambulance Service in Jacksonville, Lifeguard Ambulance Service in Lake City when they were there.
So how many years' experience do you have in this line of field?
20 plus.
Can you tell the jury your education?
As referring to what I do now, I
sir.
became an EMT once I was finished with my EMT, pursued my paramedic. After that, I obtained a bachelor's degree in criminal justice as well as my associate's degree in EMS.
Mr. Dickinson, how long have you been an EMT? I'm sorry, did you say?
Yes, sir, paramedic.
Yes, sir.
Pretty much about 20 plus years, about 24 or so.
And what are your current duties and responsibilities?
I am a An officer with Baker County Fire Rescue. We provide 911 services to the residents of Baker County. Emergency response.
In your career, approximately how many emergencies have you responded to?
There's been thousands plus.
Thousands.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury, when you respond to a scene, what do you normally first do?
One of the very first things we do is we look for our safety. We look to make sure that the scene is safe for us to approach. And once we do, we identify our patient. Once our patient is identified, whether the number of patients and who that patient is, we immediately go to assess that patient.
And then you care for that patient?
Yes, sir. Assess for injuries or illness of that patient.
You assess the patient?
Yes, sir.
When you respond to a scene and you assess a patient and you care for a patient, do you write a report as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. What is the purpose of writing a report?
To remember the events of that day or what happened on that call.
When do you normally write the report when you respond to a scene?
As soon as possible when it's finished. If it's feasible, as soon as we get back to the station and have access to a computer to do that.
And what is the purpose of writing a report?
To document the events of that call and to be able to remember what happened on that call.
Would it be fair to say that because of how many numerous calls you refer to, that writing a report helps memorialize what occurred on that day when you responded to that scene?
Yes, sir.
And would you say those reports are accurate as to what occurred on those days?
Yes, sir.
Let me take you to July 19th of 2023. Did you respond to a call on that day?
Yes, sir.
When you responded, were you by yourself or did you have a second crew member?
No, sir. I had a second crew member with me.
And who was that second crew member?
That was Laura Lee Gonzalez.
And who was the lead crew member?
That would be me.
Where did you respond to?
The address specifically?
Yes.
Give me a minute. Let me refer to my report and I'll give you that address.
Yes, sir.
We responded to it was 4596 Estate Street.
And that's here in Baker County, Florida?
Yes, sir.
And if you need to refer to your report from time to time, just let me know.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what time you arrived?
Again, let me refer to my report and I'll give you that.
Yes, sir.
We arrived on scene was at 1317.
And what would 1317 be?
117.
117.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you first arrived, can you tell the jury what did you first see when you first arrived?
My partner walked in ahead of myself, and I walked in behind her. We found the child laying on the seat of a side-by-side vehicle in a garage.
In the garage of the residence?
Yes, sir.
And did you see anyone with the child?
There were bystanders there, but I don't think there was anybody like right next to the child.
What did you and your second crew member begin to do at that moment?
My partner was ahead of me, and she started chest compressions, and I started ventilating the patient with a BVM, a bag valve mask.
And what is that again?
Bag valve mask, it's a device used to provide artificial ventilation.
And why was
Someone
that
not
used
breathing.
on this patient?
Because the patient was not breathing.
Can you describe how the patient appeared to you?
The patient was hot to the touch. She was pulseless and apneic, not breathing, and had no pulse.
Did you determine at a later time how old the patient was?
Yes, sir. At some point we did.
And what did you determine?
Let me refer to my report.
Yes, sir.
Patient was 10 months old.
10 months old. And did you also determine her name?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
I'm looking at my report. I'm sorry.
That's
That was
all right.
Araya Page.
Araya Page.
Yes, sir.
Did you determine if Araya had suffered a cardiac arrest?
Yes, sir.
Can you explain what that means?
That is a absence of a heartbeat.
Did you determine if Araya had suffered a cardiac arrest before you arrived there?
Yes, sir.
Did she?
Yes, sir.
And how did you determine that?
Because she had no pulse on our arrival.
Okay. Do you know if CPR care was done by anyone before you and your second crew member arrived?
I believe bystander CPR was initiated, but my partner walked in before me, so I didn't personally witness the bystander CPR.
But then when your second crew member walked in, she took over?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And then when you arrived, you also attempted CPR?
Yes, sir.
Can you tell the jury what is first monitored rhythm?
That's the first rhythm that we see on the cardiac monitor when we put the patient on the monitor.
Was that done?
Yes, sir.
And what was the outcome?
The first monitored rhythm on this patient was asystole.
What does that mean?
That's without any systole. That's without any type of beat. Let's say flat line.
Basically
Yes, sir.
pulseless.
Pulseless.
When you first started to treat Araya, the patient, you said there was no pulse. Did she have any motor response at all?
No, sir.
You did chest compressions
Correct.
during CPR. Did it make any difference?
No, sir.
Did you administer oxygen?
Yes, sir.
Did it make any difference?
No, sir.
Still no pulse, no motor responses.
None.
Can you describe to the jury how the patient felt when you touched her?
Hot to the touch. And her skin was dry. She was hot to the touch.
What about her lips?
They were
Anything unusual?
cyanotic.
I'm sorry, sir.
They were cyanotic.
What is that?
It's blue in color.
What is rigor mortis?
Stiffening of the muscles after death.
So that only occurs, obviously, after a patient has passed.
Yes, sir.
Did you notice any signs of rigor mortis on Araya?
Once we were en route to the hospital, we did.
What signs did you notice?
One of the crew members that rode with us, we put a firefighter in a truck with us to ride with us to help with the call. And when he tried to open her mouth to ventilate the patient, because he had took over ventilations, he noticed some stiffness there, and we also noticed some stiffness in her arms.
You transported Araya, the patient, to Ed Frazier?
Yes, sir.
And then as she was transported to Ed Frazier, was her care basically turned over to the doctor who was there and the staff that was at Ed Frazier?
Yes, sir.
Did that complete your involvement, Mr. Dickinson?
Yes, sir, it did.
Your Honor, I think that's all I have. I do tender the witness.
Cross-examination?
Afternoon, Mr. Dickinson. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
You said you've been doing firefighter, paramedic EMS for 25 years?
Yes, sir. 20 plus.
20 plus, I'm sorry. And Mr. Yazdi, I asked you some questions. I only want to cover one with you. You mentioned at the very end rigor mortis. And again, what is that again? I'm sorry?
Stiffening of the muscles after death.
From your training experience, do you know how long after death rigor mortis starts?
A couple hours.
Hours?
2 to 3 hours.
So in this case, Araya had been deceased for 2 or 3 hours?
Very possible.
Very possibly? You said very
That's
possible?
possible, yes, sir.
I have no other questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Can this witness be excused?
I think he can, Your Honor, yes.
No objection. Being excused.
Thank you, sir.
May
Counsel?
I proceed, Your Honor?
You
Thank
may.
Mr. Ward, where do you currently work?
Ed Frazier Hospital.
And what is your job at Ed Frazier Hospital?
Currently, I'm the hospitalist at the hospital. I take care of people who are admitted to the hospital.
Dr. Ward, how long have you been at Ed Frazier?
I believe I started there in September of 2017.
And what are your current duties and responsibilities?
Well, currently, I take care of people who are admitted to the hospital side. I don't work in the emergency room anymore. But when I started at Frazier, I was primary and emergency room doctor, functioning in that capacity up until, I think, about mid-January of this year.
Before you went to Ed Frazier, where did you work before that, Doctor?
I was in Georgia. I was working at Wayne County Memorial Hospital in Jessup and then Liberty Regional Hospital in Hinesville.
And what were your duties and responsibilities when you were there?
I was functioning as an emergency room doctor.
And can you tell the jury your educational experience?
Sure. I went to or attended Windsor University School of Medicine. I started that program in 2008, graduated in 2012. And then I went to Tallahassee Memorial Hospital where I attended the family medicine residency program. And I graduated that program in 2017.
Roughly, Doctor, since you've been at Ed Frazier, and it's been a number of years, you've treated a lot of patients.
Yes.
Approximately how many different patients would you say you've treated?
How many patients?
Yeah, thousands?
Lord, I don't know. I would think so because I primarily work I work a full-time job at one hospital, then I'd work another full-time job at another hospital. So for several years there, I would work probably 26, 29 shifts a month.
Okay. As a doctor treating all these different patients, have you treated a lot of children?
Sure, yes.
Infants?
Yes.
What type of injuries have you treated with involving infants?
Injuries? Anything from taking a splinter out of a toe to head injuries, children, involved in falls, farming accidents, burns, broken arms, broken bones, things like that. Something, stuck in the nose, stuck in the ear, things like that.
And have you been involved in cases involving infants where, unfortunately, they passed away?
Yes.
Deceased? How many of those would you approximate?
I don't know, probably a dozen or more. If you go back into the residency program too, probably about 24-ish.
Have you ever been involved in a case, not talking about this case, involving an infant who passed away or a child who passed away due to heat stroke?
No.
Okay. So let me take you to July 19th of 2023. Where were you working at that time?
I was working in the emergency room at Frazier Hospital.
On that date of July 19th of 2023, doctor, did you have an occasion to treat or to see a patient by the name of Araya Page?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury, did you determine the approximate age of Araya Page when she was put into the hospital?
Well, she was an infant. I didn't know exactly how old she was whenever she first came into the hospital, but obviously an infant.
Can you describe to the jury when you first saw the patient, Araya Page, how did she appear to you?
She appeared to me obviously deceased. Her skin just didn't have any perfusion. She was in rigor mortis.
When an individual, an infant, is brought into the hospital like that, are you normally briefed on what's going on?
We're briefed to the extent of the knowledge of the people who are briefing us. So sometimes we may not, if the paramedics or the firefighters or the law enforcement folks or family are bringing the patient in, they may not know everything that's going on. But we're briefed to the extent of the people's knowledge who are bringing the patient to us.
Is it important to be briefed in order to maybe do some sort of treatment on that patient?
Yes.
Were you briefed on the situation involving Araya Page?
We got a report over the radio that we knew that the EMS and fire department and law enforcement had gone out to a child in a hot car. And we were waiting we have a radio in the ER at the nurse's station, and we can hear some of the traffic, not all but some. And we were waiting to see if they were going to transport to Wolfson's, call a helicopter to the scene, transport to us, or pronounce the patient there, the baby there. Everybody had a lot of anxiety whenever, they were bringing the patient. We heard on the radio report that they were bringing the patient to us, CPR in progress. And it appeared, it's July in Florida, it's hot. We started prepping the resuscitation room, and when EMS came in, there's not that much really briefing on, the radio. There's a baby in a hot car, CPR in progress. EMS gave us more information, but there was me, there were some nurses, there were respiratory people in the room. I think there were deputies around. And there was a lot of chatter, which would be the brief,
Yes.
But whenever I saw Araya, none of that really mattered because she had obviously died.
So that was evident to you immediately?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jury, what is rigor mortis?
Well, it's when the muscles, the extremities, the body is, in layman's terms, stiff after death. The joints are rigid. It depends on a lot of things beyond my expertise, but depending on temperature and such as that, there's different phases of rigor mortis where it begins, where it's at its peak, and then when it starts to relax. But it's an obvious sign of death. It's an indication to not perform CPR. If you're in tune to that whenever you see the patient, sometimes with children, sometimes things that you learn in training, goes out the window, and you treat the patient anyway, and you take them somewhere else so they can get better help. And I think that's probably what was in the mindset of the rescuers that day.
Doctor, do you remember when you saw Araya, what she felt like, meaning her skin?
Hot,
Hot.
very hot.
What does it mean that Araya was fixed or dilated and dilated? What does that mean?
That's her pupils. That's another, it's one of those things that you put in context with the other clinical findings on your physical exam. Someone who's deceased, their pupils will dilate and get larger, and they don't respond to light. So if we shine a bright light in their eyes, they don't constrict, and they should. And hers did not.
Would it be fair to say that she was deceased on arrival?
Yes.
Was an EKG performed?
I don't remember an EKG being performed. One would not be indicated if there's rigor mortis.
Okay. Do you remember what the differential diagnosis was?
I guess you could use a general, no, sir, I don't remember. I think that it was pretty obvious based on just a brief report that we got, there's a child in a hot car in Florida in July, and she comes to the hospital with no signs of life, no pulse, rigor mortis, lividity, fixed and dilated. The differential diagnoses are very, very limited. You know, it's a heat stroke.
And if I were to show you the medical records from Ed Frazier, would it refresh your memory as to what was put down as to differential diagnosis or the clinical impression?
Sure, it might. I'll take a look at it.
Yes. Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
May I approach, Judge? Doctor, just look it over a little bit, and I'll ask you a couple questions. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Can you tell the jury what is the clinical impression and diagnosis?
Clinical impression is death secondary to heat stroke. And diagnosis, the differential diagnosis I'll just hear, dead, heat stroke. Yes.
Thank you, Doctor. After you determined the diagnosis for Araya Page, did you then inform the family that the child was deceased?
I informed the mother and her mother-in-law. They were the ones who were there at that time. To my knowledge, they were the only ones who were there at that time.
Doctor, when all this was done, were there several nurses that were present?
Yes, sir.
Was one of the nurses a nurse Charles Smith?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall which nurse took the temperature of the child?
I do not recall which nurse took the temperature.
Okay, but was the temperature taken of the child?
It was.
Okay. Was that something that was requested?
Not by me. I think that was something that was requested by the medical examiner whenever the nurses called to let them know that there was a death at the hospital.
Is that customary to request the temperature after a death has occurred?
I don't know. I think that would be a question for the medical examiner. I don't have any training in forensics, and maybe that was something that he was, some information that he was needing. I don't know what.
But your understanding it was requested by the medical examiner's office?
That's my understanding.
Doctor, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I tender the witness, Your Honor.
Cross-examination?
Judge, I have no question, Dr. Ward.
Okay.
I have no question.
Okay. Can we excuse Dr. Ward?
Yes, you can be.
You are excused. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor.
Would the state call its next witness?
Charles Smith.
All right, sir. If you will remain standing first and face the clerk, she'll need to swear you in. Raise your right hand.
Do you swear to affirm that the testimony that you will give
Have a seat, please, sir. I'm going to ask you to sit up close to the microphone so we can hear you over the speaker. And then I'm going to thank you, sir.
May I proceed,
Counsel?
Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Smith, where do you currently work?
I work at Ed Fraser's Memorial Hospital.
And what occupation do you have there?
I work as an RN or a registered nurse.
How long have you been working at Ed Fraser Hospital?
At this time, I believe 3 years and going on 4 for 2025.
Where did you work before you went to Ed Fraser?
I worked at St. Vincent's Medical Center as a registered nurse as well.
How many years did you work there?
3, I believe.
And then before that, were you at another hospital?
Before that, I worked as a certified nursing assistant at a nursing home.
Okay. What are your current duties and responsibilities as a nurse at Ed Fraser Hospital?
I work as a nurse in the emergency room, and there's a long list of responsibilities and duties, but just to name a few, we assess and treat and assist any patient that comes into our emergency room.
And my guess is you probably have treated thousands of patients in your career.
Oh, absolutely.
Can you tell the jury your educational experience?
I was a certified nursing assistant, and then I achieved my AA at Florida State College of Jacksonville, and then I went into the ADN program for nursing at FSCJ as well.
Mr. Smith, let me take you to July 19th of 2023. On that date, were you working at Ed Fraser Hospital?
I was.
Did you come across a patient, an infant by the name of Araya Page?
I did.
Can you explain how Araya came to be in the emergency room?
She was brought in by emergency medical staff and taken directly into us, and where we took over the patient.
Were other nurses present?
Yes.
And was a doctor present as well?
Yes.
Do you remember who that doctor was?
Dr. Aaron Ward.
Once Araya arrived at the emergency room, can you explain to the jury what did you and the other nurses and the doctor begin doing?
We were aware of her being brought to us ahead of time. We were called ahead of time, and so we were all several of us, including nurses and respiratory staff and physicians, all present in the room in the room awaiting her arrival.
And when she arrived, what was done with Araya to try to assess the situation?
She was moved from the emergency stretcher onto our or from the emergency medical stretcher to our ER stretcher, where we assessed whether or not she had a pulse.
And did she have a pulse?
From my understanding, no, she did not.
Do you even remember if CPR could be performed?
I know that it was being performed en route to us and prior to transferring from one stretcher to the next, but the CPR was stopped in order to assess her pulse.
And once it was determined that the patient, Araya Page, did not have a pulse, did CPR basically stop at that point?
Yes.
So would it be fair to say it was determined that very quickly that Araya Page was deceased?
Yes.
After that was determined, was the temperature of Araya Page taken?
Yes, yes it was.
And were you present for that?
I can't recall completely if I was standing right there, but I was no more than 10, 15 feet away at any time of that patient's entire stay.
Okay. Do you know why her temperature was taken?
I believe it was a request from the medical examiner that we had reached out to.
And was it documented what the temperature was?
It was.
Do you recall what the thermometer goes up to?
From my understanding, the thermometers go up to 110.
Do you remember what her temperature was for Araya when they took her temperature?
The reading on the thermometer was 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
So the thermometer wouldn't go higher than 110?
I can't say for sure that that specific thermometer is limited to 110, but I believe that is the limit.
And her temperature registered as 110?
Yes, that's
So
correct.
it's possible that it could have been higher than 110,
Yes.
depending on the thermometer that was used. What other involvement did you have after Araya's temperature was taken? What other involvement did you have with this patient?
There's several steps that are taken with any patient that is deceased in the emergency room, which is calling the local medical examiners and all that. So paperwork and talking with family and things like that. But I can't recall specifics of what was done afterwards.
And are you able to describe to the jury how did Araya appear to you or feel when she was touched?
She was very warm or hot to the touch, and she appeared to be still in what I would describe as a seated position.
What do you mean a seated position?
Her legs were bent upwards towards her chest as if she was still sitting.
Okay. Your Honor, I think that's all I have. I tender the witness.
Okay, cross-examination?
I have no questions, Your Honor.
Okay, can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor, he can be excused.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. You are excused. Counsel, approach the bench, please.